What is going on, everybody? It is week 13 of fantasy hockey. Today, we're going to be talking about the teams with the best and worst schedules, the streamers to help you maximize your games, and some new must-add players. All right, just quickly before I give you guys a schedule and all that jazz, make sure you guys download the Drafters Fantasy Sports app and use promo code FIREDUP for a 100% match deposit up to $100. 20 gets you 40, 40 gets you 80, 100 gets you 200. It's available in all of Canada, including Ontario, most US states. You can do pick'ems on there in the NFL, NBA, NHL, and more. You can also do best ball drafts. They have daily best ball drafts. I won this one like a month or so ago. It was $10 to win $250. And listen, if you have some extra money around Christmas and you want to gamble responsibly, you can use promo code FIREDUP to get that 100% match deposit. There's more info in the comments below. Download the app and sign up using promo code FIREDUP. Also, guys, one more thing, follow my Twitter. I post a lot of information on there, like deployment changes, line changes, and also some funny memes like this one. But yeah, make sure you follow my Twitter at FiredUp Fantasy. Starting off with the teams with the most off nights. We don't have any teams that have more than 2 off nights this week, so not the best options, but we do have 3 teams that have 4 games and 2 off nights. Those teams being the Rangers, the Predators, and the Ducks. We also have 3 teams that have 3 games and 2 off nights, those being the Blackhawks, the Panthers, and the Penguins. And then we have a bunch of teams that have 4 games and 1 off night. Those teams are the Hurricanes, the Leafs, the Jets, the Utah Hockey Club, and the Bruins. Moving on, let's talk about the teams with the least amount of games. We have 2 teams that only play twice, those teams being the Los Angeles Kings and the Ottawa Senators. They have 1 off night, which is okay, but in general, if you have a lot of players on these teams, you're going to be at a disadvantage this week, and you probably don't want to pick up players from these teams for this week because you're not going to maximize your games. Now let's talk about the teams with the easiest opponents and the hardest opponents. Starting off with the easiest, these are the teams that have an above 2.99 opponent goals against average. So there's a very good chance that these teams, the players on these teams, overperform. These teams are Vegas, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Red Wings, the Blues, the Blackhawks, the Panthers, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. On the flip side, the teams with the hardest opponents are the teams with a below 2.70 opponent goals against average. Starting off with the Kings, 2.40, that's terrible. The Ducks as well, not the best for them this week. And then you have the Islanders, the Senators, the Wild, the Sabres, the Predators, and the Bruins. All right, now let's talk about some streamers. Not the best options, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of maximizing your games. But we do have 3 teams that have 4 games and 2 off nights. Those teams being the Rangers, the Predators, and the Ducks. And if you want to pick up some players from these teams for the entire week, it could be good to get some extra games. There's a ton of options, depends on your league size, depends on your league settings. But yeah, you guys can see the streamers on the list here. One thing here to mention is Alexis Lafreniere was Powerplay 1 last game over Zibanejad, so maybe Lafreniere could be a guy that's available on the wire. With the Ducks, it really just depends on your league settings. Guys like Trouba and Gudas might be really good to fill your categories, but if you're not in a league that counts hits, it might not matter. But yeah, as you guys can see, these are the teams in terms of picking up for the entire week. But let's talk about some streaming strategies, guys. For example, the Ducks, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. I don't know if I want to pick up a Ducks player on Monday and hold them for the entire week. No, I want to be able to utilize my streaming spots. I'm not going to be able to fit them in on Tuesday and Thursday, so I might want to pick them up for the weekend. We'll get into that in a little bit, but to start things off, we have one streaming strategy here being picking up Monday and dropping on Saturday. These would be players from the Florida Panthers. They play Monday, Thursday, and Friday, 3 games and 2 off nights. And what you can do is pick them up on Monday, drop them Saturday, get those 2 off nights. And in terms of the options, obviously, it's going to depend on your league size. Verhaeghe could be available in more shallow league. Bennett depends on your league setting specifically, but he's a solid option, a top 6 guy. Ekblad. And then you have some, deeper league options. Lindell, Forsling, Listerainen, Rodriguez. Not the best, but if you want to get those extra games, they could be good, especially in a deeper league. Now, you can also pick up players on Friday and drop them Monday. These players playing on Friday and Sunday, those both being off nights, so you get those extra games. And these are going to be players from the Blackhawks, the Penguins, and the Anaheim Ducks. This is definitely a viable strategy, tons of options. But yeah, if you guys want to get some extra games, you could do this. Moving on, let's talk about some Powerplay updates. Olen Zellweger, I believe, is back on Powerplay 1. They tend to split the usage, so it doesn't matter too much, but it definitely bumps his value up a little bit. With the Buffalo Sabres, we have JJ Peterka back on Powerplay 1, which is good. But we have Jack Quinn moved up to Powerplay 1 recently. They've been moving this power play around quite a bit, so who knows what's going to happen. Jason Zucker seems to be the staple on this power play 1 because, he has played well. But obviously, this is not good news for Alex Tuck, who just scored a hat trick. This guy can't find himself in the power play one for some reason. And it's not good news for Dylan Cousins either. Moving on with the Carolina Hurricanes, Shane Gostisbehere is out with an injury. We don't have the details just yet, but with him being out, they called up Ty Smith, and he was running the power play one. So there's that. Not telling you to pick up Ty Smith. This could very well be a short-term injury, and we could also see Brent Burns maybe on there if Gostisbehere was out long-term. But yeah, that's what it was. With Chicago, Seth Jones is back on power play one. Very good news for Seth Jones owners. Not so good for Alex Vlasic owners. And Frank Nazar is still power play one, even though he hasn't produced at all. So yeah, that's what we're seeing right now with the Blackhawks. With the Avalanche, Nichushkin and Colton are still power play one guys. We will see how this changes. I think Nichushkin's going to stay on here. I'm not sure about Colton. Jonathan Drouin is coming back very soon. And in my opinion, it's going to be Nichushkin as that net front player and Drouin in the bumper. That's what they were doing a lot last year, and that's what I expect to happen. So, yeah, I will keep you guys updated. With the Detroit Red Wings, Kane and DeBrincat are back on power play one. We have a new Red Wings coach. Should be interesting to see how they run the lines and the power play units, but this is definitely good for both of these players. With the Los Angeles Kings, Quinton Byfield is power play one. That is very good for his value. He's been playing better as of late. That means Lafreniere is power play two. And also, Brant Clark is still power play one. With the Minnesota Wild, Jared Spurgeon is still power play one. Still think he's a solid option. Eriksson Ek is returning today as I'm recording this. He just got activated off IR. I'm assuming that's going to take Marcus Foligno off that power play one. Kaprizov is out. So Marco Rossi's on that power play one right now. But when Kaprizov is back, it's going to be Zuccarello, Boldy, Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, and Jared Spurgeon. Now with the Islanders, we have Dobson, Barzal, Horvat, Holmstrom, and Lee on power play one. They're still splitting the units. We'll see how that lasts. It's good to see Barzal and Dobson on the same unit, though. That's how it should be. Then with the Rangers, Alexis Lafreniere was power play one over Zibanejad last game. Very tough season for Zibanejad and the Rangers overall, sitting last in their division at the current moment. We will see what happens with this power play. I'm sure they're going to be mixing it up, just trying to get something to work, but yeah, that's what they did. With the Pittsburgh Penguins, it is still split. So they have Crosby and Raquel on that top unit. They have Erik Karlsson and Brian Rust on that second unit. It's interesting, but hey, they are producing on this unit. So I do think they're going to give them a little bit of a run until it starts to slow down. With the San Jose Sharks, Jake Wallman is out. Don't know if it's a long-term injury. He's only deemed day-to-day. And with Wallman being injured, they have Timothy Liljegren on the top unit. Then with the St. Louis Blues, I told you guys last week that Cam Fowler was power play one, and he's a must-add defenseman. Still a must-add defenseman. But a new development we have here is Dylan Holloway on power play one, which is very interesting. Holloway's played well. He's played solid, even strength, and now he's being rewarded getting on that top unit. This means that Jake Neighbors is power play two, and this means that Holloway's stock has gone up. Then finally, we have two more teams. The Toronto Maple Leafs. Matthews is out with an injury still. Don't know how long he is going to be out, but definitely concerning that he re-aggravated his injury. But with Matthews being out, Matthew Nyes is power play one, so he definitely gets a bump as well. Finally, we have the Washington Capitals. Ovechkin is back, and he scored in his first game back. Just classic Ovechkin stuff. But what's interesting about this power play is that even with Ovechkin back, they have kept Jakob Chychrun on this top unit. This means they have kept John Carlson and Jakob Chychrun together, two defensemen on the first unit. A lot of teams typically don't do that, so we'll see how long this lasts, but definitely good for Jakob Chychrun and not good for Connor McMichael and Pierre-Luc Dubois. So I just realized I recorded the forward ads and I forgot to talk about one important player, and that player is Alexis Lafreniere of the New York Rangers. Lafreniere has been moved up to power play one, and Zibanejad has been moved down to power play two. So Lafreniere is now line one with Panarin and Trocheck in power play one. This is huge for Lafreniere. He's a young player who broke out last year, and he put up really impressive even strength production. So if this power play deployment sticks, he could really break out. With that being said, he's only 63% rostered on Yahoo. Absolutely worth a look if he's available. All right, moving on, let's talk about some forward ads. A lot of these players I just think have too low of a roster percentage, so I'm going to keep including them in these lists. Starting off with Valeri Nichushkin, his roster percentage on Yahoo is 62%. It should be like 90% plus. There's no other way to put it, guys. Nichushkin is a monster in fantasy. And then we have Kirill Marchenko. I believe his roster percentage has shot up to like 69 or 70%. It should be higher than this, guys. He is playing like a star. He is producing like a star. And I do think a lot of this production that we're seeing is sustainable. I do think there's a possibility he could be a point-per-game player this year. So do yourself a favor and pick him up if he is available. We also have Robert Thomas. I think his roster percentage is too low if you're looking on Yahoo. Patrick Laine, who is still a solid option, being that #1 scoring threat on the power play. Mark Stone, who I think his roster percentage is too low. Brian Rust, I think his roster percentage is too low. He's playing great. Matthew Barzal, his roster percentage was too low. He was dropped because he was injured, but now he's back. He's getting a lot of ice time. He will start producing, and I do expect his power play to bounce back a little bit. It's not going to be the worst in the league. I mean, who knows, guys, but I do think Barzal is still going to be solid in fantasy, so he's definitely worth a look. We also have Jonathan Marchessault, who is bouncing back. I told you guys he was a great bounce back player, and he's finally producing. Love that top line of Forsberg, Stamkos, and Marchessault. Definitely worth a look if he is available. Puts up solid peripherals, too. We have Rickard Rakell. Great ice time, great peripherals, producing like a madman. Yeah, he is playing great and definitely worth a look. Macklin Celebrini. I know he's only a pure C, but his ice time is elite. He's playing great. His peripherals are solid. Definitely worth a look. Joel Eriksson-Ek, guys. Joel Eriksson-Ek of the Minnesota Wild. He's healthy now. He's only like 72% rostered on Yahoo. I understand he had a slow start. I think he's a great buy low player, a great bounce back player. He's going to be in the top 6 or on that top line with Kaprizov potentially at some point. He's going to be power play 1. Takes a lot of shots, puts up a lot of hits. It's a no-brainer, guys. If your league counts hits, you need to pick this guy up. Then we have Gabriel Velarde, who is heating up. Still line 1, power play 1. I told you guys that was never going to change. And yeah, I definitely think his roster percentage is still low, even though he's a guy that doesn't put up the best peripherals. We also have Pavel Buchnevich, who I know hasn't had the best year, but his roster percentage on Yahoo is like 49%, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him put up some monster games very soon and see that roster percentage skyrocket. So, in my opinion, I just think his roster percentage is too low. We also have Dmitry Voronkov, who is line 1, power play 1, getting better ice time than he was at the start of the year. That top line of Voronkov, Monahan, and Marchenko is clicking. That power play is getting elite usage. And yeah, I mean, he's a guy who is probably going to be very solid for the rest of the year if he keeps getting this deployment. We also have Dylan Holloway, who is line 2, bumped up to power play 1 now. He's a guy that puts up solid shots and hits, a young player who's breaking out a bit. Not sure how sustainable some of his production has been. I know he just had that hat trick, but as long as he's power play 1 and in the top 6, putting up these type of peripherals, then he's going to be a very underrated option in fantasy. Moving on, we have Ross Colton. I do have some concerns when Drouin comes back. Colton is going to get bumped off that power play 1, but as long as he's in the top 6 and power play 1, he is still a must-add player. We also have Sean Monahan, who is line 1, power play 1, elite ice time, elite deployment. Yeah, he's playing great. Then we have Logan Cooley, who's still power play 1 in the top 6, playing very good. His ice time has been great, so still worth a look. Troy Terry, roster percentage is pretty low. He's underrated in my opinion. His ice time is great. He's playing better. I think as long as he has his deployment, he's going to put up solid numbers, so I do think he's underrated. Then we have Nick Schmaltz, line 1, power play 1, not the best peripherals, I get it, but he's still a solid option. We have J.J. Peterka, who is back on power play 1. I still think he has breakout potential. We have Blake Coleman, who's putting up amazing peripherals. He's putting up solid production and has great ice time as well. So certainly an underrated option, depending on your league settings, of course. We have Quinton Byfield, who is back on power play 1. Very solid for his value. We're seeing him bounce back, produce a little bit more. He just had that OT game winner against the Oilers. We have Jason Zucker, who is still power play 1. Puts up decent hits, too, if your league counts those. We have Jack Quinn, who is bumped up to power play 1. Put up some decent production lately. Could be a solid option in a deeper league. We also have Tyler Bertuzzi, who is still power play 1 and playing better. We have Victor Olofsson, who is still power play 1, but just a warning, guys, he puts up terrible peripherals. We have Michael Bunting, who is getting more power play time because he's on that top unit. They're splitting the units, but he's getting more power play time as of late. So certainly worth a look in a deeper league. And then finally, we have Jonathan Drouin. He is returning soon. He's only 19% rostered, puts up terrible peripherals, so it depends on your league settings, but I have a feeling he's going to be back on that top power play unit, and that means his roster percentage is too low. All right, finally, let's talk about some defenseman adds. Aaron Ekblad is still a player who I think should be added in most leagues. He's getting elite ice time, putting up elite peripherals on that top unit. We have Seth Jones. If your league counts plus minus, he might not be the best, but he's back. He's on power play 1. He puts up shots, hits, and blocks. Yeah, he's a great option if your league doesn't count plus minus. We also have Luke Hughes. Not on power play 1 just yet, guys. It's still Dougie Hamilton, but Jack Hughes doesn't like to pass to Dougie Hamilton on the power play, guys. I don't know if you've noticed this watching the Devils games, but it's almost like he wants his brother to be on the power play, and star players tend to get what they want. So not only is that a narrative that you could go with, but I also think that Luke Hughes looks amazing out there. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get back on that power play 1 like he was last year. And if he's on power play 1, he is definitely an underrated option that could be on the wire for you. Then you have Lane Hudson. He's playing great. I understand that he's been a must-add player for weeks now, but I still think his roster percentage is pretty low for what he's doing right now with the deployment that he's getting. And then finally, 2 more players, very underrated options in terms of their roster percentage. Cam Fowler, power play 1 on the Blues, getting great minutes, putting up solid peripherals. I mean, he's not the guy that's going to put up a ton of hits, but he puts up decent blocks. He puts up okay shots. So, I mean, considering his roster percentage, it's a no-brainer must-add defenseman if you need a defenseman on your team. And then we have Jared Spurgeon. He hasn't produced the best since getting on that top unit, but he has a couple of points, and he is still power play 1. Once the Wild get out of the slump, and once the Wild get everyone healthy, Kaprizov back, Eriksson Ek back today, then Spurgeon is going to benefit massively from this power play 1 deployment. So if you need a defenseman, he is still a great option. Finally, let's talk about some goalies. I've only included a couple of goalies on here. Number 1 has to be Mackenzie Blackwood, playing amazing, secured a contract. If you need a goalie and he's available, he's definitely worth a look. Darcy Kemper, I just think his roster percentage is too low. It's like 68%. I understand he was injured, but I do think compared to some other goalies that are higher rostered, he is underrated. We also have Karel Vejmelka, who is still the number 1 goalie on Utah, playing great. I mean, I know Connor Ingram will return soon. It may eat into his games a little bit, but for now, it's his spot to lose. So considering his roster percentage, definitely a must-add goalie. Next, we have Joseph Woll. Anthony Stolarz is still out. Woll is the number 1 goalie. He's seeing the volume. He's on a great team. And then finally, we have Samuel Ersson. If you're in a category league, he's not going to be the best option. But if you're in a league that values volume, like most points leagues do, he's going to get you that volume. There's no question about it. He's a little streaky. I get it, but his roster percentage is pretty low for the volume that he provides. So certainly worth a look depending on your league size. All right, guys, that is the end of the video. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed it. Really helps out the channel. If you're not subscribed, hit that like button while you're at it. I hope Christmas was good. I hope the holidays was good. Whatever you celebrate, hope the time was relaxing, spending time with your family, etc. And yeah, that's everything, guys. I will catch you in the next one.